Hello, I'm Ian Stead. I'm the chair of Healthwatch Herefordshire, and I'm just here to introduce our annual online event. Well, hello, I'd like to welcome you to our online annual event. I hope you enjoy it and find it very interesting. First of all, just to let you know what we are, Healthwatch is your independent local champion in the county for health and social care issues. We listen to you and we use your feedback to make a difference to services locally. We've recently been recommissioned by the council to deliver this service for another 7 years, which was a real vote of confidence for us, and that gives us a real opportunity to build on our work and to make a difference to services locally. We look forward to sharing with you in this video presentation some of the highlights of our activities from the past year, and also to talk to you about our longer term plans for the future.
Healthwatch Herefordshire Annual Report 2019 to 2020. In the year to March 2020, before the pandemic, Healthwatch Herefordshire gave 89 people information and advice. We reached 311,389 people on social media. We received 60 reviews on the feedback centre, and we engaged with 3,799 people to hear Herefordshire service user voices and write our reports, visiting 187 groups and organisations. We published 6 reports based on your feedback of health and social care topics. They were Children and Young People's Mental Health, Youth Watch, Crucial Crew, Outpatients and Home First and Hospital at Home, and NHS Long-Term Plan. All are available to view on our website. We are still working on 4 projects that you voted for: Reasonable Adjustments, Men's Health, Falls Prevention and Isolation, and Adult Mental Health. We have collected 358 people's views before the pandemic made engagement very difficult. We held 3 school forums, a voluntary sector conference, an annual showcase, and cancer and end-of-life focus groups. That's 6 public events where 340 people attended.
In January 2020, we released our report on children and young people's mental health. We gathered views from young people through surveys, through events such as Crucial Crew, as well as facilitated focus groups through our work with the consultation of the NHS Long-Term Plan. Although we consulted with schools and colleges during the project, we experienced difficulties in reaching the numbers we would have liked in the education sector, and therefore this report is an interim report, and Healthwatch Herefordshire continue to focus their attention on this topic as we feel it is so important. We've put some of the recommendations into action, and we have worked to set up local Youth Watch groups where we hear directly from young people about their views on health and social care services. We have also continued to run our Schools Mental Health Forum, where we have brought together professionals from education and health to share good practice on young people's mental health. It has also provided an opportunity for teachers and those that work with young people to hear directly from health professionals about the latest developments in mental health services for young people.
Hi, I'm Richard Kelly from Healthwatch, and I want to introduce you to some good news about mental health services in Herefordshire. For the past few years, concerns about mental health, and particularly children and adolescents' mental health, have scored the highest in all people's requests for projects for us to undertake. In 2019, as part of a bigger exercise in looking at children's mental health, we decided to launch and host a forum for professionals in the education sector, working with children and responsible for supporting their well-being. The school's forum is designed to be run one morning every term and allows school professionals to interact and share ideas and good practice with mental health professionals, both nationally and locally. We ran 2 of these events in 2019 and another one in 2020 before COVID-19 lockdown intervened. In addition, we have circulated newsletters to schools, sharing the content and providing information. We've obviously not been able to hold another forum in 2020, but we recognise that children's mental health is even more of an issue post-COVID, and we're currently looking at ways we can continue to deliver the benefits via online content or newsletter until we can resume normal activity. One of the most appreciated benefits of the forum was our ability to bring young people, mental health champions, into the event, and they were able to interact with teachers and school staff. And Amy is now going to outline how our Youthwatch project has developed from that and is currently operating.
So at Healthwatch, we don't tend to hear that much from young people, and so we decided to start a project called Youthwatch. We started working with a group of students at John Curl High School. I met with them on a number of occasions and we discussed various topics.
So the most important topics to us were positivity and focusing on the things that make you happy and not the things that you will worry about. So in Youthwatch, we've been talking about how we can make our mental health good at school and outside of school. Like I think a few weeks ago when it was Mental Health Week, we walked around the classes in lower school saying 3 tips of the day, what to do. So drink lots of water, talk to your friends, walk the dogs, just enjoy yourself and relax and just be happy.
It's been amazing. It's been a wonderful opportunity, Amy, and we've really enjoyed you coming into school, into John Curl. So always at John Curl we've had a major focus on mental health. So the head teacher, Mr. Griffiths, as well as all staff are completely committed to positive mental well-being and ways of supporting children. So Healthwatch has brought a greater essence to the whole school actually. Just from seeing the young people being filmed today and their reactions to the work that Healthwatch has done within John Curl, and you know the new Youthwatch group has been superb and they are so committed to helping other students throughout the school and raising the profile of mental health not only within John Curl but also across the community. You know, these are some of our newest students into the school today, only 6 months into John Curl, and I think they've done a grand job. It's
so nice to hear voices, and the engagement that we've seen today has been fantastic. It's been really fun, and it's so useful as someone who's involved in commissioning services to hear actually how it is on the ground, to hear what are the concerns from young people and actually what could we be doing better.
Yeah, if you remember the first session that we had with them, they were very, very quiet, and then as the weeks have gone on, they've become much more vocal, and as you could see from the filming today, actually, you know, they're very, very keen on asking those questions of Dr. Linane, and they want answers, and isn't that what Youthwatch, Healthwatch is all about? You know, finding out, signposting, getting the support and help that you need, and surely student voice is so important for the future.
I think it's really good because usually people just listen to the adults and don't really think much of a children's voice.
I hope they've found it useful. I certainly have. It's been challenging. I've had some really difficult questions, but it's been really interesting, and I've just been hugely impressed at how engaged and how interested they are in the subject. You know, I kind of live and breathe this stuff, but actually it's really important that people kind of have an awareness and that we know where we're going with mental health particularly. So hopefully it's been useful and a chance to show that we're accessible, that we want to get involved, and that if we pick things up early we can do something better.
Last year, the public voted for Healthwatch to focus on the topic of prevention. Following consultation with the Herefordshire Public Health team, they wanted us to specifically look at falls prevention and social isolation. It is estimated that 4,600 older people with frailty are living in Herefordshire at the moment, and this is expected to increase by 25% by 2025. With an ageing population, this is an important topic to cover, as the consequences of falls and social isolation can go on to have a negative impact in many areas, which can be physical, psychological, or both, and lead to issues such as hospital admissions, disability, or admission to a residential or nursing home. Engagement for this project was through organisations such as care agencies, care homes and carers groups, as well as hearing from people involved in neighbourhood schemes and community groups. A number of recommendations were made after looking at the key findings from this project, which include more promotion of existing services, as well as tools to empower the public to be aware of the hazards that cause falls and what they can do to prevent falls from happening in the future.
Our men's health project ran from July 2019 through to March 2020. When the pandemic hit, it stopped us from doing a lot of our engagements. However, we did manage to speak to 126 Herefordshire men about the kind of issues that they faced trying to access health services and to look after their health and well-being. Men fare worse than women in most health measures, both nationally and locally in Herefordshire, and we felt there may be some issues where men were not contacting services as quickly as they might, and we wanted to find out what those barriers were. We visited pubs and clubs, we carried out quizzes, we also were able to incentivise men to help with surveys because they don't ordinarily take part very readily, and so we offered the Man Manual, which is a Haynes style manual from the Men's Health Forum, and it's written in a very amusing way for men to have a look at, with cartoons and very easy to read messages. And this was quite popular with men, and we were able to get a lot of interviews because of the fact that they were going to win their Man Manual. We found that a lot of men were finding it very difficult to get appointments that fitted in with their work schedules. We also found that there were lots of ideas that men had about where they would more readily access services, including if their employers were to offer easy to access services for them. We wrote 5 main recommendations, which were to 1. Use social settings to reach men with information and messaging advice, with a key role of proxy messages that target wives, partners, husbands and friends. Secondly, to use employers and workplaces for giving information and offering health tests and health services that target men. 3. To target military transition training to impart information that informs and links men to health checks and services. Fourthly, to use direct and strong messages backed by role models and promotions like the Man Manual and Men's Health Forum, and quizzes to motivate and incentivise and engage. And we also made a 5th recommendation, which was to ourselves really as Healthwatch, to improve men's engagement with Healthwatch and focus on specific communities, for example ex-military but also farming, to follow up the post-COVID-19 pandemic as part of other work, for example with the talk community.
Over the past couple of years, we've had a fantastic volunteer helping us out with the Crucial Crew event. So here's Megan telling us about her experience of volunteering with Healthwatch Herefordshire.
I volunteered for Healthwatch at a Crucial Crew event. Crucial Crew is a school safety day coordinated by the West Mercia Police every year for all Year 6 children in the county. There are 10 workshops delivering various safety messages for the children throughout the day they attend. Crucial Crew runs for 2 weeks, allowing all the children in the last year of primary school a chance to attend for a day and take part in all 10 workshops. There is a total of 1,676 10 to 11-year-olds across Herefordshire. I led the workshops and interacted with the children, supporting them with the activities, as well as answering any questions they or their teachers had. I found volunteering with Healthwatch really rewarding, which is why I returned for a second year. I felt the team were really welcoming and have supported me, enabling me to step outside my comfort zone. This volunteering opportunity has furthered my career progression, as I wish to go into teaching upon graduating. Volunteering has boosted my confidence in interacting with both students and teachers, as well as networking with the other organisations. I also feel my time management skills have improved by having to keep a strict time frame for each workshop. This will massively benefit me in the future. I am grateful for the opportunities that Healthwatch have provided me.
This year I've been doing a project on reasonable adjustments. Reasonable adjustments are those little changes that employers, services and leisure facilities need to make that will mean that people with disabilities can access the services or employment just the same as anybody. So for example, someone in a wheelchair, it might be having a decent ramp into the building or lifts. For someone with a learning disability, it might be providing information in easy read. For someone who has a vision impairment, it might be large print, all sorts of things like that. I'm going to be creating a training resource, and this will enable employers and services to see what kind of adjustments they might need to make sure that their customers or their employees are able to work on an even level with everybody else.
Hi, I'm Angela Martin, and I work as part of March's Family Network. I'm a youth worker, and I also lead on the All Interactive project, which is funded by Herefordshire Council and delivered by March's Family Network. And I'm in my 4th year of that project now, and it looks at inclusion and accessibility in the whole of Herefordshire, particularly for children and young people, disabled children and young people and their families. I think if you happen to have a disability, you tend to make all sorts of reasonable adjustments to the rest of the world. And so it's always useful if the rest of the world wakes up a bit and starts making some reasonable adjustments back.
That's good. So you think the pack will be useful for employers and services?
Yes, I think the pack will be useful, and I think it'll be interesting when you first launch it, because obviously there are employers who have disabilities, and I think it's going to be a very useful go-to bit of advice, and something that people can just look at and get a lot of information that might have taken them quite a bit of time to see.
Okay, I'm Valerie Fitch. I'm on the autistic spectrum myself. I have a husband and son who are also autistic, but I'm also the chair of the Autism Partnership Board.
Great. So I've been coming to the Autism Partnership Board for quite a long time, and we've been just successful in being able to get a diagnostic pathway, which was very pleasing, wasn't it?
It was fantastic. It's one of the biggest achievements we've had, and certainly one that we've been attempting to get for many years. So it is absolutely wonderful. So when Healthwatch came on board and started attending, they were very good. They were just as determined as us as getting things done.
Yeah. What do you think of Healthwatch work on reasonable adjustments?
This is really interesting, because as autistic people, we often get sidelined in companies. Very often we're thought of as being odd, maybe awkward. So reasonable adjustments helps us to do our jobs better. So all employers should be happy with it. But the cost very often for small companies is great. But understanding autism is the first step, and making the reasonable adjustments is great. So the work is fantastic. It states what it is. It's a law, so people should follow it. And I'm really pleased to have been able to help Healthwatch with the document. It's in the name, Healthwatch. So it's not just for autistic people. Healthwatch help an awful lot of people get seen, GPs to take notices, businesses to take notices, and even places or boards such as the Autism Partnership Board. So yeah, over the whole spectrum, I've known about Healthwatch for probably about 5 years, and have worked with them over this period of time. I wouldn't be wasting my time working with them if I didn't think they were good.
In 2020, 2 significant mental health changes were planned for Herefordshire. Firstly, a change of provider who is commissioned to deliver both adult and children's mental health services, and a pilot project to transform the delivery of adult mental health services as part of the significant new investment heralded by the NHS 10-year plan. It was to be a busy year, and Healthwatch planned to be involved in both of these key events, and then COVID happened. The change of provider went ahead on the 1st of April, 1 week after lockdown. We said goodbye to Together Mental Health Foundation Trust, who'd been our mental health services provider since 2011, and the service was taken over by Worcester Health and Care NHS Trust. The second big change planned for 2020 was something called the Mental Health Transformation Project. This is good news, and really big news. There is new money for Herefordshire and parts of Worcestershire that is going to revolutionise the way that mental health services are delivered in this county. The big change is that there are going to be mental health professionals inside GP surgeries, and your own GP will be able to make a direct connection between you and that mental health professional if you need it. In addition to that, there is going to be an end to the process whereby people are referred to specialist mental health services and then discharged when it's considered that they no longer need them. You're going to hear from Sue Harris, who works for Worcester Health and Care Trust, who will outline some of those changes.
Hi everybody, my name's Sue Harris. I'm the Director of Strategy and Partnerships at Worcestershire Health and Care NHS Trust. So we're the organisation that now runs mental health services across Herefordshire, and those services transferred to us on the 1st of April this year, which was obviously a really interesting time given we were in the throes of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'd just really like to say thanks to all of the staff for just working tirelessly through that period just to keep mental health services stable and running, and also to partners for working with us when it was hard to do what we would normally do, which would be face-to-face meetings, getting to know you. I've done a lot of that via WebEx. So really exciting time in Herefordshire for mental health services. We have some new money coming in to transform community mental health, and that's really about delivering mental health services much closer to general practice and actually delivering it wrapped around your primary care network. You have 5 of those across the county, and it puts mental health much more on a similar footing to physical health, insofar as you can go in to see your GP and there'll be a mental health specialist available for you to see, taking away all the referral and the toing and froing which some people often experience when they're going into secondary care mental health services traditionally. We also have seen more money come down specifically on for services such as eating disorders, mother and baby, perinatal services, and we're expecting to see those increase and expand over the upcoming years. So a real opportunity now, I think, to use the new opportunities, to use the stakeholders, the partnerships, to really set out that vision for mental health for Herefordshire for the years to come. And I just want to reiterate, Healthwatch is so important in basically giving us views around how that feels for folks. So please do raise your issues and feedback to Healthwatch, because it will then come through to our organisation and wider partnerships to enable us to respond and make changes and continue to shape and develop and improve service provision across the county.
In the beginning of 2019, we undertook a project on Home First and Hospital at Home. These are very short term, up to 6 weeks, rehabilitative services that support people to remain in their own homes as they recover either from a procedure, an operation, or an accident, or some kind of health condition. It is a mix of services. It can be from the council coming in and putting bars to help you go up a pathway or a ramp. It can include putting in a bed downstairs because you can't get upstairs for the time being. As far as hospital at home is concerned, it's preventing people from going into hospital in the first place and being able to stay in their own home to recover. We were given the contact details of people that were willing to talk to us about the services that they had received, and we telephoned and visited people's homes and carried out surveys. We were in the end able to speak to 7 people from Hospital at Home, 18 people from Home First, and 6 people who had experienced both services. The majority of customers were very happy with the services, and in particular with the way in which staff worked with them. 74% said that they had achieved their goals, very importantly. Over 70% of people gave examples of positive experience, and just under 20% said that there were aspects that they weren't happy with and that they felt needed improving. We spoke with managers and told them about what the public had said, and we came up with recommendations that were ways to improve both services. They mainly centred around improving the information that people received, so that they were a lot clearer about what was expected in the service in terms of what they would receive, but also what they would need to do themselves to recover. And secondly, the way in which all the different services coordinated their activities, so that it was more like one seamless service. The managers are working on those recommendations, and we aim to go back and carry out the survey again, and hope to see improvements from what the public has suggested.
Last year, Healthwatch undertook a project working on the long-term plan. The NHS launched a 10-year plan in January 2019. Healthwatch coordinated work across Herefordshire and Worcestershire, asking the public what their views were around various aspects of health services. We covered 8 different topics, and we visited many groups and undertook online surveys and face-to-face work with the public. The output of this work has fed into the NHS to make sure that they can plan for the long term and use our report. Sue Harris will tell us about the impact of this work.
So I've had the pleasure of working with Christine and Herefordshire Healthwatch since 2015, because I have another hat, and in the Sustainability and Transformation Partnership for Herefordshire and Worcestershire I lead on communication and engagement, and back in 2015 I worked with Healthwatch to basically go out and talk to the public about what they wanted from health and social care services in the years to come. We redid that process again more recently when the NHS long-term plan was published, so Herefordshire Healthwatch led on focus groups, surveys, and really going out to hard-to-reach communities to really get the views of people in relation to the NHS priorities nationally, what those felt like locally, and where we needed to focus our efforts. It was a fantastic piece of work, and we were able to use that to shape our return, and actually in particular to shape our ambition and our aspirations in relation to the priorities and what we needed to work on together. Healthwatch just continues to provide a really independent view on health and social care services in the county, and I want that to continue, especially as we learn through the COVID pandemic about the different ways we might need to work together, whether that's more digital access, whether that's about different ways of working to keep people safe and well at home, community resilience, and more importantly, those specialist services, making sure they're sustainable for the county that has such a rural mix as Herefordshire does. So again, I can't thank Healthwatch enough for being such a great partner and providing that independent voice and giving the opportunity for local people to comment, and it really does then go back into the planning processes for the NHS locally.
In March 2019, we carried out an enter and view. Enter and view is a statutory right that Healthwatches have to be able to go into services and observe and to talk to patients about their experiences. We went in to visit the outpatient clinics. We went to ophthalmology, urology, rheumatology, ear, nose and throat, head and neck, radiology, fracture clinic and trauma and orthopaedics. We wrote a report which you can find on our website, and the report went to Wye Valley Trust, and with Enter and View you ask for a response from the services. We received a response which was very favourable. They took on board a lot of what we found and what the public told us, and they've been making improvements ever since. This is an interview now with Anne Miles from Wye Valley Trust, who is in charge of the clinics at Wye Valley Trust, and this is what she has to say about our visit.
So Healthwatch came to visit Wye Valley NHS Trust in March 2019. We had a group of volunteers that was arranged over a 2-week period, and they came in and they interviewed 165 patients. We had no complaints at all from staff or patients around them being there or asking the questions. Some patients came to what was known as a one-stop clinic, so that instead of coming into the hospital 3 or 4 times to see different people, they actually came for that day and had all of their interventions and procedures done on the same day, which we'd only just commenced 6 months previously, and this was really, really helpful to have the feedback from the patients to enable us to consider other services in the future change into a one-stop system, which we have done since Healthwatch have come, and we have been able to do that in respiratory as well. We also had a report sent back to us which had all the information from the comments and patients, which enabled us to share with our staff and the managers and executive team, including patient experience team, which meant we could review it and actually consider very good feedback, which was really, really helpful, especially around the environment with patient seating. We were able to redesign some of the seating and also notices and notice boards, and actually we've looked at different things with putting up different information in different places. It allowed us to see it from the patient perspective, and also that feedback was completely valuable to the staff that actually worked in the clinics as well.
This year has been a challenging time for the NHS and the local authority, and indeed for the public, with the coronavirus pandemic. In the wake of the pandemic, it was clear that many changes had happened quickly in order to protect the public from the spread of the virus. So Healthwatch decided to undertake a survey around how people were impacted by services and the coronavirus over the course of May through to July. We undertook a survey based on a template from Healthwatch England, which we did with Healthwatch Worcestershire across both counties. In Herefordshire we had 258 responses, and the themes of the survey work that were coming through were largely around 7 different areas that people wanted to tell us about, where services had changed, where people were having increased issues with access, but equally where people have found some of the methods that have been introduced because of coronavirus, such as virtual access, online access, and telephone advice, useful for many people. The 7 areas that people mostly told us about were mental health, the Herefordshire Council Talk Community Response Service, hospital services and community health services, dentistry, GP services, pharmacy services and home care. We summarised this report and we fed it back during the course of the work between May and July to those services involved to make sure that they, where they can, that they were able to adjust what they were doing to take on board the feedback. Now the survey's concluded, we'll share this information widely with all the services involved in the feedback that we've received. The work will also form part of a larger report that the NHS and various providers have been working towards, gathering views about the pandemic and views about how services have had to adapt and what things have been positive and what things have been challenging. This work is part of something called the NHS Reset and is about how the NHS moves forward after COVID-19 and thinks about changes that need to be made for the longer term.
I'm Julie. I retired earlier this year in March, and I joined Healthwatch to represent local people in giving them a voice about local health and care services.
I do what I can to support the NHS, and the best way I can do that is partly as a critical friend.
I thought if there was a possibility of making use of my knowledge and skills, I became a volunteer.
Since retiring from the NHS, I've always tried to make sure that everybody has a chance to have their say in shaping the local services.
I've been with Healthwatch basically since I think the beginning. I've found it very handy. In fact, they've taken up a number of issues that I've put towards them. And I've also, in this area, tried to promote and have promoted the question of the joint working between Worcestershire and Herefordshire.
I'm Jessica. I retired a long time ago from nursing and had some unfortunate incidents with local healthcare and found I was being palmed off and nobody had asked my questions, and I was delighted to find Healthwatch as a totally independent body and felt that they were essential really in today's way of life.
You help us as a person with a learning disability when we do our questionnaires and surveys to make them easy read and so that people can understand them. It's really, really helpful.
I became a friend of Healthwatch because I thought I might be making a difference to a person with a learning disability and they might find some stuff easy read easier.
Something you may not know is that health services are now working together across Herefordshire and Worcestershire. That's a fairly recent innovation. So the future involves a lot more working across the two counties to get better integrated care. And Healthwatch will be working very hard to ensure that our county retains a very strong voice for the services, and that we work across the two counties, and we'll also be working with Healthwatch Worcestershire on a partnership basis to ensure that services work best across both counties. And obviously Worcestershire is a lot bigger than Herefordshire. One of the things we'll be working for is to ensure that Herefordshire gets a fair share of resources and benefits strongly from it, and we believe that that can happen because actually to be linked to a bigger county gives you opportunities to do things that we couldn't without that link.
Hello everybody, my name is Simon Trickett. I'm the Chief Executive and Accountable Officer for Herefordshire and Worcestershire CCG, and I've been asked by Ian and colleagues to do this short video talking you through some reflections I think on the 2019-20 year, particularly for Healthwatch, but also some reflections from an NHS point of view in what's been quite a remarkable few months really. I talk a lot to my colleagues just about how remarkable 2020 is turning out to be in many ways, Some actually quite tragic and appalling and really, really difficult, but also some good ways, because I do think that the pandemic, the changes to our society that are happening around us at the moment, and the changes to the way services are organised and delivered, there's a whole host of things that are happening which really are quite remarkable, in that they would have taken many years, I think, to achieve otherwise, except for working in circumstances like this. So I look back, I think, to January, February, March, when all this happened, and I look back, I think, in particular, I'd reflect particular to those few weeks in March where really the shock, I think, of realising that actually we were in a global pandemic, and the global pandemic was here in the UK, and it was here in Herefordshire affecting us. Those few weeks reflecting on what we were going to do and how we were going to approach that really were, certainly for me, some of the most challenging of my professional career, and it's circumstances I don't really want to be in again. Having said that, I am really proud of the way colleagues across health and care services responded to try and help you, to serve our community, to serve our population. I'm also really proud of the way our partners responded, and Healthwatch being a key part of that. I'm really proud and pleased with the way patients and service users adapted to how they were going to have to get their support from the NHS or from the local authority and other service providers in a different way. And it's often been said, and I think it's a fair reflection, that actually what we then saw during those few weeks in March was probably maybe even a decade's worth of transformation and change squashed in and compressed into those few weeks. So we talked for a long period of time about how we wanted to use technology more, how we wanted to have different ways of providing support for people. We talked about that, but probably looking back, I'm not sure we really had the confidence in our ability to do that effectively. I'm not sure we had the confidence in members of the community ability to adapt their behaviour and to adapt their interactions to be able to use the technology. And what we saw was this absolute tidal wave of enthusiasm and a can-do attitude from right across the board, and we saw people adapting to that. And we went in Herefordshire in particular from really hardly doing any GP consultations virtually, hardly any, very few numbers of telephone consultations and hardly any video consultations. And we went up to a point by the end of March where over 80% of GP consultations were being done virtually, which was a huge change in just a few weeks and really did reflect the bravery, I think, that everybody showed in doing that. It also, I think, was apparent to me, we've talked for a long time with Healthwatch and other colleagues about service integration and the challenges of trying to join up the NHS services that you might get from your GP practice, the services you might get from Wye Valley Trust, services you might get now from Worcestershire Health and Care Trust, who are providing your mental health support services, and the services you might get from the local authority and even the voluntary sector. So that whole package of service support that many of you and many of your members of your family, many people you know are receiving, and actually how fragmented that often can be. And I think what we saw as well during COVID was, rapid progress towards joining more of that up and integrating that. And we saw relationships between those organisations that are involved in that work really transform in a matter of hours and days, really, let alone weeks. And actually, there's a huge positive there for us moving forward in terms of trying not to go back to that fragmented means of delivery that we saw previously. What I hope is that the lessons that we've learnt in the last 6 months really can be used as a basis for the next 6 months in the year, and really can be used as a basis for how we approach the winter. Working together, organisations working together, that community resilience and looking after each other, which I mentioned, but also these different ways of accessing support from services. So, being not afraid to have a telephone call from your doctor, being okay with a video consultation, making sure we have got face-to-face GP appointments available for people that really need them the most, and finding a way amongst ourselves of really prioritising how we deliver that care. And most importantly, I think looking forward, continuing to work collaboratively with Healthwatch and with other partners, What we've shown so far in 2020, I think, is how we really are stronger together, and how when we work collectively, we can tackle, almighty burdens like a global pandemic. And that's really what gives me cause for optimism again looking forward, is this sense of collective identity and this sense of common purpose that we seem to have developed. And that's going to be really, really important moving forward. So thank you for listening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you for all the support that Healthwatch have offered this year. I think Healthwatch have been absolutely marvellous in both counties, but particularly in Herefordshire. Ian, Christine and the wider team really are invaluable partners to us, and we really do continually value their contribution. They're challenging, they're difficult, but in a good and constructive way, and we need that, and public services needs that type of challenge. People like me need that type of challenge. So please keep up the good work. Thank you for listening, and I hope your AGM goes well.
So my name is Stephen Vickers. I am the Director for Adults and Communities. I have a range of responsibilities for the Council, including the delivery of adult social care and also the delivery of housing operations and also public health operations. So obviously Herefordshire has had a very difficult and challenging times, particularly during the last year. We had the floods at the end of last year, the floods early in 2020 of course, and then that was followed quite quickly with the pandemic. We've worked with Healthwatch obviously throughout that period, and particularly during the pandemic. I've had at the beginning of this weekly conversations with Ian Stead from Healthwatch. I found that particularly useful on a personal level and a professional level. Ian was a fantastic sounding board for me to test some of our thinking, to challenge some of that thinking of course, and to ensure that we were listening to the views of and assuring the views of our customers were as part of that conversation. The conversations with Ian have continued throughout this period, and actually I continue to meet with him monthly. As I say, I find that particularly valuable at a personal and professional level. What we most definitely have seen, particularly during the pandemic, is our system coming together in a way that it never has done before, and at great pace. And what we've obviously seen is a more joined up approach to the way that we deliver care. We've seen a fantastic response from the NHS and with our local authority in the way that we work together, but also importantly with the providers of care that we work with the voluntary and community sector, and of course with the communities themselves who have really stepped up in Herefordshire and shown us just what value they can add to us as a system. And again, that's the reason why I think that Healthwatch and their role within this becomes so critical, because they are representative of those communities, and I think that is adding great value to the way that we continue to shape today and the way that we respond to the COVID crisis, but also to the way that we'll respond to it in the future. So obviously we've been working closely with Healthwatch over the past couple of years. They've really stepped up in terms of their partnership role. They are increasingly prominent and increasingly influential on some of our critical boards, the Making It Real board, the Health and Wellbeing board, where they're seen as an equal partner around that board. And I think what's changed for us under the new leadership of Healthwatch locally is the one that we feel that it's a partnership. It feels like it's a partnership, and it feels that we're able to work collaboratively. But we never forget, of course, that they are there to represent particular views, but that way of working really helps us to take on those views in a very positive way and not feel that it is in any way adversarial. Yeah, so yes, very pleased to have just this very morning to have signed a new contract with Healthwatch, and based upon the past couple of years' work that we've been doing with them, very optimistic about the future. Very optimistic about the work that we can continue to do together. I think it's really important that people use Healthwatch to feedback their views. The relationship that we've got with Healthwatch is a very strong one, one of real partnership, one that we find most useful in listening to the views of service users, and really helps us to shape the way that our services look. And it's really important that people get the chance to feed into that process, and Healthwatch is certainly one of the ways that they can do that.
So welcome to Katie Eastaugh and Alicia Lawrence from the Cart Shed and Herefordshire Mind. Katie and Alicia are now non-exec directors of Healthwatch Herefordshire, and they've joined me today to talk a little about their roles with Healthwatch and how they hope to influence Healthwatch and improve it and the way it works.
To be a non-exec director at Healthwatch, I think is a really good fit for Herefordshire Mind. Obviously, we're working across the area with individuals who are gaining support for their mental health and affected by mental health issues in some way. And linking in with Healthwatch is great for us because obviously a lot of our participants are accessing mental health services either through primary or secondary care, and to be able to get some input into how those services are working for them and to be able to hear how it's best to get their voices heard. Through the joint work that we were doing through our Carers in Mind group and the Mental Health Forum, and coming in partnership with Healthwatch on that, really demonstrated the benefits of working together and gave me a greater understanding of Healthwatch.
So from my perspective, I mean, I think it's very important that when developing services, you're aware of what's on the horizon. So, at the Cart Shed, we obviously communicate well with our participants and have a good understanding of what they'd like and what they need. But it's not always easy to see how this might be impacted by external health and social care decisions, because they're usually relayed to the community sector once all the decisions have been made. So being part of Healthwatch Herefordshire, I think it will hopefully enable me to have access to some of this important information at an earlier stage when change is afoot, which gives the organisation the ability to advocate for those in our community whose voices are rarely heard. I see my role as not just representing the Cart Shed, but also the wide range of organisations that we work with. For example, the members of the Herefordshire Activities Together partnership, who are providers of a wide range of health and social care services in Herefordshire. It's important that Healthwatch gets to hear these voices as well, and for information exchange to take place effectively. And since joining the board, I joined, as did Alicia, when in lockdown. So in terms of influencing, it's still early days. But it's also important to realise that during the last 6 months there have been some significant decisions about our health and social care are being delivered. And these decisions have been made without challenge, it seems, as the usual checks and balances can be ignored in crisis situations. And there are obviously more decisions in the pipeline, specifically around social care. So it's, I think, vital that we flag these up to Healthwatch, because they may themselves not be aware of what's going on the ground.
The description that you give describes an enrichment to Healthwatch through the organisations that you work for. And this is what we hope to bring to Healthwatch by having non-executive directors on the board, to enable us to be more well informed by organisations that may be closer to what's happening in health and social care on the front line through service users that you work with.
So as somebody who's lived and worked in Herefordshire for many years, I'm really passionate about Herefordshire's voice always being heard and being heard in that wider picture. And I think that's something that I really want to ensure that Healthwatch remains focused on. I think it's crucially important that as a county we don't get swamped by decisions happening elsewhere and people assuming that that'll work in our area.
And I'd like to reflect that I agree absolutely with that, and again would see that my role is also to shine that light on the rurality of Herefordshire and how incredibly difficult it is to deliver services when transport, for instance, as as an example of how people are excluded from a wide range of services, impacts on the health and well-being of many of our residents. We are a large county with a small population, so our voice isn't really heard. And I think both Alicia and I can speak quite well for a range of viewpoints, because we're both extremely passionate about who we support and why we support them.
So to somebody who doesn't know much about Healthwatch, I would say essentially it's about getting your voice heard, and it's about a way of ensuring that the services that we all pay our taxes for, and this brilliant NHS health service that is provided by our country, it's your way of having your say in what works and what doesn't work, and actually what you think will work for you. I think it's crucially important in all aspects of society that we listen to the people who the services are aimed at and who you're delivering them for, and Healthwatch is a vehicle for doing that.
It seeks to represent those whose voices are often lost. Individuals can be ignored, organisations representing individuals can also be ignored, but Healthwatch can't be ignored, which means there's real opportunity for the community to influence how the services we want and need are provided.
My name's Karen and I joined the Healthwatch team in January as the Communications Officer. It became clear very early on in lockdown that we needed to increase our social media presence. Not only did we need to promote our online surveys, we realised that there was a huge amount of national and local information that we needed to share. As well as updating our social media channels daily, we also continue to send monthly e-bulletins. You can subscribe to our bulletins via our website or by emailing us directly. It has always been very important to Healthwatch that we reach people who aren't online. Therefore, during lockdown, we developed stronger relationships with local parish magazines and continued to write fortnightly columns for the Hereford Times. Our online feedback centre remains a valuable resource to those people wishing to rate and review any local health and social care service in Herefordshire. The reviews we receive help us identify trends and highlight examples of excellence. The feedback centre can be found on our website. In order to keep up to date with Healthwatch, we invite you to follow one of our 3 social media channels. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and we have the same social media handle throughout all 3, and that's at HW Herefordshire. We also invite you to email us at any time, and our address is info@healthwatchherefordshire.co.uk.
The future for Healthwatch looks bright, and we have recently received a 7-year contract award from Herefordshire Council. We're really excited about what that will mean for us to be able to plan ahead and do some really great work and serve you as the public of Herefordshire. Some of the key things that we'll be working on from September 2020 will be sexual health, hospital discharge, future choices for care, and looking at the BAME population in Herefordshire and what their needs and issues are for health and social care services. Beyond that, thinking longer term, Healthwatch have some key priorities that we will always focus on. These are mental health for children and adults, making sure that the voice of children and young people is heard loud and clear through our Youthwatch project, looking at services across Herefordshire and Worcestershire and working with our health system to ensure that your views shape an integrated service for people across both counties. Working towards a dementia-friendly Herefordshire, demonstrating our impact and communicating it clearly to you, ensuring that we are a well-run, independent, transparent organisation that serves you, reaching all areas of the county and reaching all types of people across Herefordshire to make sure that everybody's voice is heard, not just those who shout the loudest. It's very important to us that you're involved in the planning of services as well as the delivery of services in the county and making sure that they're of a high quality. We also work with Healthwatch England and will continue to do that and have a strong relationship to make sure that your voice is heard nationally and shapes national policy. We want to work closely with the statutory sector, the voluntary and community sector and the third sector to make sure that we serve all people in the county and we maximise as much of our resource as possible. For the future, what Healthwatch really needs is your input, your feedback, and we really value what you say to us. It really makes a difference. Thank you.